Ignition sequence starts. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0. Liftoff. We have a liftoff.
Hey everybody, this is the Digital Asset Investor, and yesterday Brad Combs posted a lot of the, pretty much all the video from the XRP Las Vegas conference. So I've been able to go through some of that and find some of the cooler parts. There was one clip where they had the iTrustCapital CEO, the LinkTo CEO, and the Glint CEO all on stage, and this right here is Joe Endosa, CEO of LinkTo. And he's talking about their upcoming IPO.
Yes, those of you who are LinkTo customers already know we announced, I think the 9th of May, our intent to go public via a merger with a listed SPAC that's called Blockchain Co-Investors Acquisition Corp. We're doing this transaction mostly to fulfill our responsibility as a management team at the company to our very earliest shareholders, right? Because LinkTo is, you might also know, while we're relatively young in the private investing space, we didn't launch this platform until February of 2020. The company itself, LinkTo as a corporate entity, has actually been around some 15 and a half years. So for most of that life, prior to becoming a private investment platform, it was doing a whole bunch of other unrelated stuff, but nonetheless, it has shareholders that have been shareholders since the very beginning of 10 or 15 or so years ago. And so those shareholders naturally are exhausted, they're looking for liquidity, and so we reckon that by going public through this merger, we can accelerate the process of listing and bring liquidity to those holders. The intent here, Will, isn't for LinkTo to raise a big gob of capital now, because we've been running this company profitably and we've been generating a good level of cash flow internally since we launched. So there's no great need for capital right now. And there's no great need on the part of myself and the management team today to actually exit, right? We're not looking to dump our shares and retire. So this is entirely premised on just giving liquidity to our earlier shareholders and continuing our mission to continue growing LinkTo, continue creating value for our shareholders, our customers, and our employees as a public company.
Okay. I haven't shown you in a while. LinkTo is my sponsor, by the way. And these, look at all of the issues that are on the LinkTo platform right now. This is kind of crazy. When I first started talking about LinkTo, they only had like 2 or 3, I believe. And now they've got just about anything you can think of on the platform at this point. I haven't shown all of these in a while. I just wanted to go through them. There's Glint. I'm going to have a Glint video somewhere in this video. Very interesting comments from their CEO. Shannon Thorpe puts this out. All XRP holders, remember when Joel Katz said the XRP community should create a poll for Ripple's new stable coin? Well, let's have some fun, and special thanks to Johnny for giving me the idea. I'm going to hit the refresh button and see where her poll is at. I voted for USDX, and it looks like that is the majority vote. 542 votes so far. Go in there and vote. Now, more from that. I've listened to a lot of Brad Garlinghouse interviews over the course of time, folks. And I can tell you, I believe that the one yesterday is the best interview I've ever seen him do. Watch this. And maybe that's because my gut tells me that's partially because Brad Garlinghouse knows that he's at the end of this thing and he can say things he wouldn't say before.
The Securities Exchange Commission picked on Ripple. Like, of all the different things you could pick on, we were actively working with governments around the world, and it's like, it's still to this day, it's a strange, why? You'd think you'd pick weaker players. And I think they were surprised that we were just like, absolutely not. We are not rolling over. I mean, another thing which is sort of known publicly, but I had the opportunity personally to settle for what I would call relatively de minimis amount of money, where I could have just been out of it.
Really?
I could have been out of it. Chris Larson went out of it. They wouldn't do that with Ripple. But so what they're doing is trying to manipulate the narrative. Hey, we settled with the CEO. We settled with the chairman. But we're going to go after Ripple. They're a bad actor. It looks bad. But it would have been relative to.
You know what that's called, folks? That's called balls and taking one for the team.
Where I was financially, it would have been de minimis. And frankly, for my life sanity of stress and maybe a better decision, it took. And Chris and I had a lot of one-on-one personal conversations. Like, we're all in this together. And, for one of us to have folded, it would have been tough for the company to stand in the face of that onslaught with, that. And so it was kind of an all for one, one for all thing. And
I love that. That's inspiring as hell.
Yeah, I mean, it was, but like, I don't want people to take away that like, oh, this was a no-brainer. It was just like, particularly because I feel like the SEC was, I feel, malicious and manipulative in trying to get us to settle.
Yeah.
To create a narrative that Ripple's been a bad actor in some way.
I don't think people can fully empathize with how crazy of an adversary the United States government can be.
Yep. And then probably, one of the things Brad Garlinghouse mentioned in this interview that to me hit home more than anything he said in there didn't have anything to do with XRP. It was a clip where the guy asked him if he had any like books or whatever. You'll see the clip after this. Books or whatever that he would recommend, things that inspired him or whatever. And he said he told his kids about this. And it's a speech where this guy is the Nvidia CEO. And he's on stage talking to Stanford students, I believe. Listen to what he says, and then after that, you'll see the Brad Garlinghouse question.
I think one of my great advantages.
You kids, listen up. This is the kind of stuff I've been showing my kids and talking to my kids about their whole life.
I have very low expectations.
And I've found it to be very true in my life.
And I mean that. I think one of my great advantages is that I have very low expectations. And I mean that. Most of the Stanford graduates have very high expectations. You deserve to have high expectations because you came from a great school. You were very successful. You're at the top of your class. Obviously, you were able to pay for tuition. And then you're graduating from one of the finest institutions on the planet. You're surrounded by other kids that are just incredible. You naturally have very high expectations. People with very high expectations have very low resilience. And unfortunately, resilience matters in success. I don't know how to teach it to you except for I hope suffering happens to you. And I was fortunate that I grew up with my parents providing a condition for us to be successful on the one hand, but there were plenty of opportunities for setbacks and suffering. And to this day, I use the phrase pain and suffering inside our company with great glee. And I mean that. Boy, this is going to cause a lot of pain and suffering. And I mean that in a happy way, because you want to refine the character of your company. You want greatness out of them. And greatness is not intelligence. Greatness comes from character, and character isn't formed out of smart people. It's formed out of people who suffered. And so that's it. And so if I could wish upon you, I don't know how to do it. For all of you Stanford students, I wish upon you ample doses of pain and suffering.
Are there any TED Talk?
What a great message.
Books, courses, just personal development things that you've done that you feel like were like asymmetric levers in your personal growth that you think everyone should just either read or watch right now?
Oh, that's a really good one. I'm trying to think. Well, I mean, this is a micro example, so it's imperfect. And I kind of alluded to it earlier. The CEO of Nvidia gave a talk at Stanford. It got some fame, at least in the viral loop, ran for a minute. And I don't know. I think his name is Jensen Huang.
Jensen Huang, yeah.
Yeah. I don't know him. I listened to this guy, and I actually sent it to my kids. Which, by the way, that's the highest praise I can give, right? Like, this is something I want my kids to pay attention to.
Wow, yeah.
And, his message was one of like, I wish pain upon you. I wish friction upon you. It was kind of like, and I agree with him that particularly a generation that has been gifted and had immense opportunities, like how much friction have they really had? Do they have the grit? Because even as you're describing the like people not taking risk and because they're afraid of rejection, people who have grit are less afraid of failure. They understand that like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna run into some shit and that's okay. Because it's not about how many times you get knocked down, it's about how many times you get up.
Yes.
And like you gotta keep getting up. And if you've never been knocked down, those first couple times, and I say this partly as a parent, like, I've seen my kids get knocked down once or twice. And, those first couple times, it's, that they've had pretty good lives. Like it's
a big shock.
Yeah. And, but I'm thrilled in the same way that he was giving these, the CEO of Nvidia was giving these Stanford students his counsel. I think it was super powerful.
Yep. Folks, I can tell you firsthand, I don't ever even take part in ETHgate if I had not been knocked down in my life. Doesn't even happen. Then this one now, I want to warn all the crypto police and the Gestapo out there because they, as you know, they're smarter than you. They're smarter than all of us. And so they are the dictators and get to tell us all what we're allowed to say and what narrative we're allowed to carry and not carry. And apparently since Brad Garlinghouse has now fought the SEC, he's not worried about the crypto Gestapo or the police or whatever you want to call them. Guess what? The digital asset investor is not afraid of them either because I am a grown-up and I've been through plenty of stuff and I don't let other people tell me what I can and cannot say. So damn the crypto police. We're going to play this clip anyway.
It's inevitable.
And I warn you, it is wild speculation. It's the kind of speculation that if I said it or if certain other people said it, oh, they would be everywhere. You can't say that. Those are wild speculators. They are this and this. They are fanboy, whatever. Man, the cancel culture is one of the greatest poisons that I've ever seen hit our society, folks. Ever. All it is I don't know. It's a disguised version of creeping communism is what it really is. You're supposed to have some central authority that you appoint who is smarter than everybody else. You're supposed to have some central authority that tells you what you can and can't say. Some group, whatever. Good thing Brad Garlinghouse just don't give a damn, just like me.
And it's inevitable that, now right now we're talking about is $2.5 trillion. Look, do I think this is an easy 10x over the next 5 to 10 years? Yeah, no problem. That doesn't freak me out when I say that at all.
Like that's conservative. If you
that feels safe. I mean, to the earlier conversation around asymmetric returns, is there a chance that it's 100x in that time frame? It feels aggressive, but
why not?
I don't know. Like, I think that many people in the United States, particularly, don't understand what it would be like to have lived in Argentina and have the Argentinian peso devalued effectively to zero multiple times in my lifetime. Why would you hold that currency?
We don't realize that could become us.
That's exactly the point, right? Like, I think that we underestimate what that macro dynamic looks like over the long term. And so I'm, incredibly bullish. The reason I'm dodging the question only slightly because what's the timeline for this year? I mean, I have said publicly, I think that the market will be over 5 trillion by the end of this year, which is a double from where we are now. How that applies to,
I wonder if that could involve the stable coin.
Bitcoin versus XRP. I mean, people forget before the SEC got involved and said that ETH is not a security, XRP was the second most valuable digital asset.
Oh, wow. I think I've said that before.
Yeah. That wasn't that long ago.
That wasn't long ago. What, 3-4 years?
It was 2018 when Hinman gave his speech. So 6 years, a little less than 6 years ago. Yeah, five years and change. And look, when a government actor gets involved, the markets change, and maybe that's to be expected.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you still have that government actor involved. Unfortunately, you still see, and I believe what I read usually, look, it appears the SEC is trying to mount a case against ETH. To me, that's absurd. To me, that's like you've already...
All we ever wanted was a level playing field. We didn't want anybody to go after ETH or Bitcoin or XRP or anything else.
Lost a bunch. Why would you keep fighting this fight?
Yeah.
But look, unfortunately, I don't think the U.S. government should be putting their hands on the scale of winners and losers. In the long run, I think the best technologies applied with the best use cases, delivering the best utility, that they'll win.
There you go. And then the Reaper Coin guys get on here and they decide they want to do some wild speculation with Ray Fuentes. Very dangerous, Reaper.
But if you are able to get on a computer and get on a phone and get in an XRP, that's something less than 1% of the population is yet to be aware of. But if you're in XRP, you probably already know where this is going, and it is going to become inevitably and through default the global reserve currency.
That is some very dangerous words. I know you're not allowed to say that on X. Now, in DAIXRP.com, one thing I'm going to talk about is the crazy, amazing announcement that the Glint CEO said on stage. The other thing I want to talk about, there, all of a sudden, some people that have, Bitcoin, Ethereum people, all of a sudden, they're starting to get, it's like, welcome to the party, the scene from Die Hard. They're starting to say, wait a minute, what are all these partnerships with Ripple? What's going on here? We're going to look at some of that in there too. And I think I got another couple of XRP Las Vegas clips that I wanted to show you. I'm the digital asset investor. I'm not an investment advisor. This is for entertainment purposes only. Please subscribe, hit the like button, tell your friends and family that away we go.